You're listening to the Anarch Interviews, presented by the eMilitia podcast. This is the first of a new kind of bonus episode to fill in the time between our main serialized shows. The focus will be interviews conducted as background for articles on my substack, theanarch.substack.com, which these podcasts will also be available on. This is a slight break from our more conversational tone with formally prepared questions and structure, and won't be regularly scheduled. For this first interview with Miss Lauren Liberty, Second Vice Chair and Communications Director of the Arizona Libertarian Party and main organizer of the Arizona End the Damn Wars rally, I had the good fortune to be able to do an in-person interview. We discussed everything from the details of the event to the importance of making the peace movement relevant again, working beyond party politics and even political factions, and messaging in the aftermath of the Afghanistan withdrawal. I hope you enjoy the same energy I felt being able to talk about a topic as important as reviving the anti-war movement in person as I did conducting it.
For you, in fact, coming up next up.
The Anarch Interviews. theanarch.substack.com.
So, we are a little more than a week out from the 20th anniversary of the 2001 attack on the World Trade Center in New York, which, of course, sparked the War on Terror and the subsequent disaster of a 20-year-long war in the Middle East. Nationwide rallies under the moniker End the Damn Wars are planned to protest the American war machine, with the main rally happening in D.C., with speakers like Scott Horton and other prominent anti-war activists from across the political spectrum planning to make an appearance. Joining me today to discuss the newly reborn anti-war movement and the local protest happening in Scottsdale, Arizona, is Miss Lauren Liberty.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
It's very cool to do an interview in person. It's not often that, too many people are local enough to be like, hey, we'll just do it in person.
Yeah, it's great. This is actually the first time I've done something in person rather than via, Zoom or Skype.
and after the last, year and a half, coming up on 2 years, it's nice to do something a bit more
face-to-face?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. How'd you become an activist, and what's your general kind of background?
Yeah, sure. So I am actually originally from New York.
Oh, yeah.
I got interested in the Libertarian Party around 2008.
Ron Paul?
I was introduced by, a Ron Paul. Yep, totally. And even back then, Adam Kokesh. And so it's so weird to, sort of be friendly with him now, too. I'm like, wow, how many years later? I never would have imagined.
Hell of a lot closer, too.
Yeah, exactly. So I left New York in 2012. I lived in Florida for a while. I've been in Arizona for 2 years. And shortly after moving to Arizona, I got involved locally with the Libertarian Party. And then I've just sort of been really working on networking since then. Yeah. I ended up being elected as the second vice chair for the Arizona Libertarian Party. And I was also appointed as communications director. So communications, networking, all of that is really what I do. It's what I'm pretty passionate about. I strongly believe in messaging. I think that's really important. I think it's something that not everyone's good at.
Nope.
And that's okay. We all have our niche things. But I do think that messaging can make or break anything, really. So I really try to focus on things of that nature. And one of the ways that I found out about the End the Damn Wars rally was through networking on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I actually prefer Twitter nowadays for most networking anyway. I find that it's actually a lot easier and more organic interactions on Twitter.
Yeah, other places you kind of have this is my official statement, rather than just oh yeah, this is our social media guy telling you what you need to know.
Yeah, it's a little bit more casual, which is totally up my alley. And I find that it's a little bit more organic, also not that forced algorithm type of thing.
Yeah.
So I prefer to definitely stay in the Liberty Twitter sphere. And I saw Magnus Pen Media posted something about End the Damn Wars. So I was like, oh, cool. This is something that I would love to be involved in.
Yeah.
And I went to the website and I saw that it had other cities, and it was empty. There was no other cities listed yet. It was just DC. Yes. So I messaged him right away and I was like, hey, how can I get involved? I would love to host something here in the Phoenix area. I think we will have a really good turnout. And he gave me all the information. He was super helpful. And I want to say we were one of the first cities, if not the first city, to have our own plant.
I was going to ask, because there was a time when I was like, oh, damn, it's in DC. There's no way I can possibly make it out there, unfortunately.
Right.
And then, I started seeing all these crop up. So you were probably the first, you think?
I believe I was.
Yeah.
Oh, it was either us or Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, they have 3. I was very impressed with Florida.
Yeah, I know. They are really about it, which I love. And it is a huge state. So I'm really happy to see that they have multiple locations there. Yeah, and it was just one of those things where I was just going to do it on my own. I didn't ask anybody for help, but I did, as a courtesy, like, let the Arizona Libertarian Party know about it.
Yeah.
And our chair was totally like, yes, we want to support you. They were really, really into it. So it was really awesome to have the support of the party as well.
Yeah, that's something like the party... Not speaking as an insider, but it's been very kind of election focused recently, whereas we're starting to see kind of a shift to libertarians actually doing more on the ground activism, which is like, actual protesting, kind of more conventionally left wing tactics. So it's cool to see a shift into actually getting out on the ground rather than, just the clean party meetups and stuff. It's like, no, let's go out and talk about something we're passionate about that's not, necessarily sexy for elections or whatever. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's one of the big things about when it's a non-election year. We typically see after that election year a huge drop-off.
Yeah.
So that's also something that I'm really focused on, is keeping up that momentum.
Yeah.
We have to lead by example. If you still want liberty to be the focus come election year, you have to start that 4 years in advance.
Yeah.
So that's something that I definitely also prefer to keep on the forefront of, staying active, staying ahead of things. And it's like never ending. It's very exhausting, but it's worth it to see something like, I thought this rally was just going to be a little, okay, if 10 people show up, I'm happy.
Yeah.
And we've had a huge amount of support so far. So that in itself is enough validation to know that there are other people that want to see this all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a similar kind of experience when we were doing the 2A rallies here in Phoenix the last 2 years, where we were like, right, are we going to be turning up in full kit with rifles next to a bunch of, like Realtree camo FUDs?
Yes.
Or is it going to be like a real actual libertarian kind of turnout?
Yeah.
And even not just libertarian, but, kind of like this, where you have, perhaps socialists who are like socialist rifle people.
Yeah.
And all those kind of, more lefty types are like, no, we're going to turn out in full kit too. And it's like...
I love it. Yeah. I love to see it. And to that effect, that's something that we're seeing with this rally here, where we are having other political parties reaching out to me to say, hey, we want to join you. Can we show up and support? I've had the Arizona Green Party, and then one of their caucuses is the Young Eco-Socialists Caucus. And then I also had the Arizona Communist Party reach out, and they were like, hey, can we come to show our support? And I said, it's in a park. Any peaceful person is welcome. Yeah, I absolutely appreciate the support. And I really like the idea of uniting on the issues that we do agree on. Instead of focusing on fighting, we can focus on actually getting stuff done by uniting towards at least one common goal.
Yeah, it's a relief to actually see people being like, oh no, it doesn't have to be our anti-war movement, which, you'd think the lefties would be more into, but...
right, exactly.
It's us,
yes,
our cause.
I'm willing to share. I'm totally okay with that.
I had to get that one in. So let's step it back a bit. How did you become an anti-war activist?
So it's something within the last few years that I've really began to understand more.
Yeah.
As a New Yorker, after September 11th, and I was very young, I was probably like 14 when it happened, I believe. I totally thought that going to war was justified.
Yeah.
And a lot of things that the government was doing played on that emotion. And even a lot of young people that enlisted right after September 11th, they were told that this is just, this is noble, this is you're avenging all of those, 3,000 people that died, and this, that, and the third. And so for a while, it was just sort of, I was young too, so I was just like, it is what it is. It's not like I could vote and change anything.
Yeah.
And then it sort of became background noise. Like, we were at war for so long that you just forget that it's even happening.
Yeah.
Especially when the news doesn't focus on it, and a lot of stuff gets swept under the rug, and you really only knew if somebody that you loved or cared about got deployed, and then you're like, oh, yeah, we're still over there, aren't we? So it definitely was something that in my younger years, it kind of just wasn't really at the forefront of what I was paying attention to.
Yeah.
And then once I got more active and wanting to sort of spread the message of like libertarian ideas, war comes up a lot, and military spending. So then I was looking at it from like a fiscally conservative point of view, where you're like, okay, yeah, we have this extremely bloated military budget, and where is it going?
Yeah.
And it's going to this war that, why are we still fighting this war? What is the point? And why are our people over there still dying and civilians being killed as well?
Yeah.
So then it sort of also evolved with the whole like police thing, like law enforcement, where then you realize all of that surplus stuff that they're buying, weapons, whatever, Bearcats, like why are those being sold to local police departments and then being used on civilians?
Yeah.
So that's another layer to it. And then my husband is a combat veteran. He was over in Afghanistan. And then talking with him about it, I really got like a firsthand sort of point of view of, we still have people over there dying, and for what?
Yeah,
for what reason?
Just see the last few weeks.
Yeah.
To this day, losing people over there for what?
20 years. I mean, it's insane. It's insane. So all of those things sort of all rolled into one is really what made me want to become more active in the anti-war movement. And then seeing Magnus and how passionate he is was really also inspiring to me. I think he's wonderful. And also seeing the support from just this little grassroots, sort of movement is adding fuel to the fire. It's great. I think that there is a lot of sentiment behind this. I think there's a lot of people that have that, not just emotional, but also logical, like what's the plan here? Yeah. So it's definitely something that the more that I get involved in it, the more I want to be involved in it. Yeah. Yeah. That's, started to bleed into one of my questions quite far down the line, but in a good way. Cause I was going to ask about, this has usually in the past been kind of a flower child hippie kind of cause. And now we're starting to see like, obviously there's the emotional impact of this thing. And obviously war is an awful thing. And you have that kind of, authentic, like, blah, I reject this. But then you're starting to get the more logically, fact-based people going, this is actually pretty irresponsible for a number of ways. Yeah. For a number of reasons. Yes. And do you think that's something this movement could potentially, not just revive the anti-war movement, but perhaps bring it to a place where it's less a left-wing kind of sentiment and more just an everyday opinion that you can have? Absolutely. I think that this should not be a partisan issue. It should be logic, and for some people emotional. I don't tend to love emotionally driven arguments. Yeah. But if you can say, here's the facts and here's why I'm so passionate about it, and keep the two separate, but also use that to fuel your drive to keep working towards this, I think that's okay. Yeah. But yeah, so this rally in itself we're calling it post-partisan because it doesn't matter. Yeah. It doesn't matter where you come from. And if the only thing that's driving somebody to be anti-war is that emotional aspect, that's fine. You can join us. Yeah. But I would like to also give people more information about how to argue against somebody that is only fact-based, which I think is valid. I think that if you're have no emotional involvement or emotional, leanings towards being anti-war, and you're just looking at it strictly from a fiscal point of view or from a logistics point of view, you also need to be able to talk to those people. And that's where communications and messaging comes in. So I'm also looking at this rally as sort of an opportunity to let people from those two camps sort of meet and exchange ideas. Yeah. And if what somebody, like, we're going to have, I want to say, 6 speakers, including myself. And if what any of us say resonates with even one person, it was a success.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I'm looking at it. I definitely would like there to sort of be a marriage of those two ideologies where, okay, you can have the emotional aspect, you can have the factual aspect. And if you can kind of intermingle those ideas, I think we'll be in a good place where you can find at least one point that's going to resonate with somebody.
Yeah, you're pooling your resources.
Yeah.
You know, like, and who cares if the libertarians or the communists or whoever are the ones who end the war? It's like, good, it's over.
Exactly.
Like, we can all agree that it's an awful thing going on, and not just, we'll get into that a little bit, not just Afghanistan, but all the other conflicts and parts of the world we're involved in. But yeah, I mean, who cares how it's brought to an end?
Exactly. And there is so much of that, like, where people make politics their identity.
Yeah.
And there's so much of that partisan, oh, well, Obama started it, Trump kept it going, Biden, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I don't care.
So, from a libertarian perspective, if you had to elevator pitch someone on being anti-war, what's your go-to argument?
From a libertarian's perspective, I would probably go the route of being fiscally responsible and how it's just a huge amount of spending and it's unnecessary. I mean, when you look at it, if we were to move more towards a non-interventionalist and sort of only keep our military just bolstered enough for protection purposes and have that be our focus, and not from a nationalist point of view, but just a non-interventional, we don't have to be the policeman of the world.
Yeah.
Most countries don't want us to be their policemen. So if we could scale back on a just major scale there, and just focus on more important things, that's really where, I mean, we don't have to be in these other countries. So that would sort of be my route of talking to somebody from a libertarian standpoint, is that, it's this huge budget, and what does it go towards? And it, as I mentioned earlier, in turn is sold off to local police departments and then used against civilians. Yeah. So that's also infringing on civil liberties too.
Yep. Always comes home.
Exactly.
Could you tell us a little bit about the End the Damn Wars movement? We've kind of gone into it a little bit, but could you tell us a little bit more about how it came about?
So I had seen it posted on Twitter from Magnus, and I think it was initially just kind of a small thing where it was like him and somebody else, and they were like, okay, yeah, we are going to have a rally in DC. Yeah. And I don't think he even anticipated it to become as huge as it has. Yeah. And I know he's a huge activist. He's always out doing something. So he kind of is of a similar mindset as me, where it's like, yeah, even if like 10 people show up, cool, that's 10 people that we got a chance to talk to. Yeah. And it's just evolved into this whole big, huge thing. And I'm really impressed how quickly it's become a big movement. It's cool to see how many other states are adding on to as well. Like daily, I'll see him post something new, like, oh yeah, whatever city, are you ready to end the damn war? So it's really cool to see that it's catching on, even with so little time. Yeah. To the date.
These last few days, I'm like, you're going to put together a rally in a week? I believe you can, but...
Yeah. Yes, it's chaotic, but you certainly can.
Yeah. Organized chaos or something chaos theory. I don't know. So, any concerns that the masses will consider an anti-war rally at this point in time pointless, as the Afghanistan war is, quote-unquote, over?
Maybe. I'm not really concerned with that. I am still very confident in the message that it will be well received, because my personal belief, not that it matters, but I don't think this is going to be the end of the conflict in Afghanistan. So I think it's something that we do need to keep in the forefront, because it is so touch and go right now. You don't know. Tomorrow there could be some huge catastrophe that can happen, and it's like, all right, we're going back into Afghanistan.
3,000 troops right back.
That's it. Boots on the ground all over again. So it is something that we can't let that momentum die. And there's still there's conflicts in other countries too. Yeah. And Afghanistan wasn't the only country that we're in. And even if you look at how many just military bases in other countries that we're occupying, why? So I think that it's something that we do need to keep talking about for sure. And I'm not really worried about those people that say that, oh, well, the war is over and we can just go move on to other things. I don't think that we can, and I'm not going to.
Yeah, it's kind of the same mentality they've had the past 20 years where it's like, the war's happening, what can you do? And now it's like, the war's over, who cares? Like, you guys weren't looking at it from the start anyway, but there's so much more to it than just, this war, that war. It's like, we are at war all over.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And how do you say that it's ended? You can't say that the only thing that has ended is our official occupation of that country. You can't say that the war has ended, because who the hell knows what's still going on over there.
Oh yeah, I'm sure just between private contractors and drone strikes, we're going to be in there another 10 years at least.
Exactly. So I don't believe that for a moment that the war has ended over there.
And kind of a follow-up, do you see the catastrophe that was the Afghanistan withdrawal as more of and obviously the whole thing was awful, but as more of a good thing or a bad thing for the movement? As in, a lot of eyes are on Afghanistan right now, and a lot of people, for the first time, are putting their energies towards, shouting about war, which they very rarely do.
Yeah. I think it is definitely catch-22. It has brought a lot of awareness to the issue, but it also was horribly botched. There were just so many different ways that it could have been done. And don't get me wrong, I think it was going to be a disaster no matter what.
Yeah, 20 years destabilizing a country is never going to turn out, sunshine and rainbows.
Exactly. So, yeah, I think no matter what, it was going to be very messy. And I do think that there were going to be lives lost no matter what. But I also think that could have gone about it so many different ways and maybe put just a little bit more thought into it. But it, like I said, it has brought so much more to the forefront that there were people that, once again, it was just background noise for them. They weren't paying any attention. So it is important that also all of that wasn't done in vain. I think that that's also a big thing, that it's important that we keep this going. Yeah,
learn something from it. I mean, Vietnam kind of, faded out, and that anti-war movement grew up to be, well, where are they now?
Exactly. Yeah, kind of weird.
yeah. We'll leave it at that. But I mean, I think this generation, oddly, there's been very much a revival of that kind of culture from, like, people blasting Jimi Hendrix and kind of the new psychedelic movement and stuff. And hopefully this anti-war movement will continue to be a continuation of that trend. Where,
absolutely.
A bit more of a sensible trend. People have way more access to information these days. We have video of war crimes, not just like hearsay and, nice slogans on signs.
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot more proof, and there's also a lot more whistleblowers too. Yeah. That's something that I think has brought a lot of validity to the movement. And
from Julian Assange,
exactly.
the day after the main protest, I'll say it again at the end, but they're planning a protest outside the British Embassy, which made me very happy.
Yes.
And as well as the Vice President's house over Julian Assange. It's like, thank God.
Yes. And that's another thing that a lot of times these people are seen as traitors, and it's like, no, that's the most patriotic thing you can do, is to expose the corruption and all the horrible things that's happening at the hands of your country.
Yeah.
So I think that also that has brought a lot of, like, oh, they're coming with receipts. Like, they have facts of this stuff that's happening. It's not, like you said, just, oh, well, my buddy who was over there told me this. And, so I think that that's also something that, it hopefully does continue to resonate, especially with younger folks. That's also a huge part of why I would like to make I like to use the word like palatable or digestible, just easy to receive this message.
Yeah.
So I think that that's another plus to having so many different aspects and so many different people coming to all of these rallies.
Yeah, it's a lot of different flavors. I mean, it's just like, Libertarian podcast. You can find anyone with any kind of voice you need, whether it's like an anarchist veteran or like a Libertarian Party, more like well put together type or whoever it might be, Tom Woods, But I mean, this is an even wider palette.
Yes.
Like, no matter what your identity is politically, you'll find someone who's making points that resonate with you and helping you, pass them on to like-minded people.
Yes, exactly.
So, nice to see that disseminated, which I'm all about. what are the goals of the nationwide rallies? Or, you know, like your rally in particular and kind of the wider movement. There were demands, right?
There's a list of demands. I can pull it up if you'd like me to. Okay,
yeah. We can just run through kind of like the core ones.
So I really liked that was one thing that they had put out, was that list of demands, because it also sort of gives people an idea of what we would like to accomplish.
Yeah, because I mean, it's all very well and good to say, you know, wars are awful, but it's like, all right, well, what's the action?
Right, exactly.
It's not just like it's 1 or 2, it's like a whole shopping list.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's exactly it. And
you know, fair enough.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I found it. So there is like an official list of demands that is endorsed by End the Damn Wars, and the list is to end regime change wars, which absolutely that's what a lot of them are. End unconstitutional military operations. So, I mean, that in itself, that's a no-brainer. We don't want to violate anybody's rights, and that happens so often.
And so easily.
Yeah, right. End the targeting of anti-war journalists, activists, and whistleblowers, which is what we just were talking about.
I mean, there's even been, was it Obama that drone struck a journalist way back when?
I believe so.
Like, accidentally.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Oops.
Yeah, sus is not a strong enough word.
Right.
I don't know what is.
And to really think that people would believe that is really
whoopsies.
amazing. Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's some USSR shit right there.
We turned left when we meant to turn right.
The other Jeep with the Taliban commander, it was just going down the opposite road.
Jeez, imagine that. Yeah.
So, not just in, you know, exiling them or arresting them, but literal assassinations of journalists, which has happened.
Targeting them. Yes, for sure. And I think that is something that is not talked about enough, so I'm happy to see that on the list of demands for sure. Yeah. And once again, we have receipts of it. So we have solid proof that, yes, this is happening.
Way too many receipts, like grandma's drawers.
Yeah, a CVS receipt.
We have it all.
So the fourth one is to end global intelligence operations that instigate conflicts.
Well, we were even spying on Angela Merkel, so God knows what else we were getting up to.
Exactly, and that's just what we do know. That's not the super top secret, like high level. Yeah. So really, you just don't know what we're actually up to and how many things were started because of us meddling in foreign affairs.
Yep.
Cut and audit military budget, which was something that is a huge, I mean, really, it's a huge amount of spending to no result. Yeah,
I mean, from the very small, anyone who spent some time in uniform has definitely shot rounds into a dirt hill for no reason. Right. And that's the most minuscule thing. I mean, the waste goes... Buying the bullet talks about stuff.
Right. Yes, above and beyond. And that's just, yes, like you said, small scale. Audit the Pentagon is one. And that's...
They would not like that.
No. That's something that I think I hope to see. I don't know how we would even go about that.
Their receipts might not match the ones that we'd hope to see.
Yes. Yeah, the Pentagon's kind of terrifying.
Yeah, people fall downstairs and a lot of money to be made.
Yeah, one of my uncles worked at the Pentagon for a very long time, and nobody knows what he was doing there, and he has never told a soul.
Might as well have gone to Nam.
Yeah. Hell. I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. So yeah, Pentagon's a little frightening. So I do think that for transparency's sake, we need to know what the hell is going on there. And I understand certain things have to be for security reasons, but also maybe do less of that.
Like, a lot of this is pretty fishy from the start, and your justifications are weak
at best.
Yeah, for being generous.
So one of the very last ones is to stop funding and arming oppressive regimes, which we're now seeing that brought to light with what's happening in Afghanistan, with how much stuff we also just left there. And our excuse was, we disarmed it before we left. as if you can't ever, like, there's nobody in the world that could ever repair it and get it back up into running.
Yeah, and I mean, day one, they were walking around with, American military armor and small arms and stuff.
Weapons,
yeah, along the helicopters and stuff. So,
mean,
disarmed. They smashed a few windshields.
Exactly. And even just the training, too. I mean, there's that, I'm sure you've seen the meme of the, just the trigger control.
Yes. Yeah. Like, we taught them that.
Yes, I love that. Yes, and it's so true. You can see.
Yeah, so many of these guys were, Afghan National Army at some point. And it's like, okay, well, I get it.
Yeah.
But
they learned it from us.
Yep.
But I mean, it's so completely insane to arm and teach people and not assume that they're ever going to turn around and use it against.
Well, I mean, the whole time we were training them, not to get too far into it, but there was green on blue incidents all the time where, Afghan National Army someone would just shoot up, like U.S. servicemen.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, clearly this should have been rethought a while ago.
Yeah.
And never was.
Yeah.
And, sunk, what was it, 80 billion or something into training and preparing the Afghan National Army, and, well, lasted a few weeks, or 72 hours, something like that.
I was going to say not even a week, I think, and 20 years of training these people, and in less than a week it crumbles. That just goes to show you that all of those efforts were really just, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah, and our nation building strategy is not one to be copied ever again, you know?
Absolutely. So the last thing on the list is to scale back U.S. military bases around the world, which is, I didn't even realize I was talking on these points.
Well, no, it's a good thing. They might not have them in shopping list format or whatever, but,
It's valid, yeah. And it's something that it really is. There's so many layers to all of this, and it's so just, if you can pick just one of those points and reach an audience with just that, but having a laundry list of all of these things and you combine it all together, it's like you're going to give somebody a reason to catch on and be like, hey, maybe these crazy libertarians are onto something,
Yeah, like maybe it's not the worst thing to, maybe see what they're on about every now and then. That's something I wanted to ask about, because I was looking for the last anti-war rally in Phoenix, and I expected it to be 2001 or something, very early on. It was actually a bit more recent. The recent war of Iran back in, I think, likely because it was under Trump's regime, was after the drone strike assassination of Iran's, one of their top generals.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it was January 2020, we had in-person protests in Phoenix. Was the Libertarian Party involved with any of that, or was that more like a organic,
We were not involved in that. That was something that... So also around that time was when, a lot of people weren't really wanting to do in-person stuff, which I understand. Yeah. So there wasn't really a lot of buzz about it. I actually didn't even hear about that.
No, neither did I.
Yeah.
I was, posting my usual kind of propaganda about such things.
Right, from home. Yeah.
But I didn't know there was any kind of actual activism or in-person stuff going on.
No, I actually didn't either, but it's good to know that there still were those people that were willing to go out and still try to bring awareness.
Paint the signs and stand outside someone's office.
Absolutely, and I hope whoever was there joins us next weekend, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, we can only hope that they, that through one of these many channels they've heard something and have, been sensible and adult enough to be like, okay, cool, I can get over being shoulder to shoulder with someone I might not necessarily agree with on everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is okay? So that's something I actually want to get into, the whole idea of the unity protests, and we got into it a little bit, but what are the factions involved? Do we what are the biggest ones, and are there any kind of, I don't know, smaller faces we might not have heard of?
So there are, our state chair here in Arizona actually has a lot of contacts, and she was reaching out to, there's, the Catholic Church actually.
Oh, really?
Has something that is AntiWar.
That's oddly surprising.
I know. I was actually surprised at that as well.
I'm not. There's so many denominations in this country, but Quakers or something are very anti-war.
Oh, Oh, interesting.
From my understanding, I might be getting that completely wrong, but I'm pretty sure that they're fairly like anti-violence, anti-war, and that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, there's so many like kind of niche. What do they call them? Something. People who object to like, you know, enlisting or whatever, or fighting, conscientious objectors.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, there's like whole religions where they're like, yeah, all of us do that.
Yeah, we're all against it. There was also, oh my gosh, I hope I can find it. There was another, so there was somebody that was killed in Mesa shortly after, like, I want to say after the September 11th attacks, and I think it was like somebody that was in the Muslim community. So they also are very anti-war, and that was somebody that she was going to be reaching out to. But sometimes, like, so what ended up happening is a lot of these other factions are also having their own events on a, you know, smaller scale or whatever.
Oh, because it's obviously September 11th.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Exactly. So that's the one thing with this particular event, is that there were a lot of other events going on, which I understand. Yeah. But they've all said that they're going to try to send at least, you know, 1 or 2 people out if they can to attend our event. And it's sort of like, we're totally on board with promoting these other events. I'm just waiting on specifics, which it's always a hurry up and wait situation.
Yeah, like, we'll have some information for you. We're a week out.
Exactly. So it was interesting to like the Catholic Church. I was raised Catholic, but I stopped believing when I was like 8. I kind of
first time you talked to those people in a minute.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, no disrespect, but I just never even knew that was a belief of the Catholic Church, that they were
I'd never heard of that.
Yeah, me neither. So that was a surprise. I was like, okay, cool. Hey, well, I'll take it. Once again, I mean, if we can all unite on that one issue, I'm with it. Yep. And then, like I had mentioned earlier, the Arizona Green Party. So I've actually been working with one of the guys from the Arizona Green Party on another issue, which is ranked choice voting, and bringing that to Arizona. And so he is with, his name's John Ralston. He's a great guy. He's with a nonprofit called Voter Choice Arizona. And he had been messaging me on the AZLP Twitter, and we got to know each other, and he's a super great guy. And I got sort of involved with that. And being third party having third party candidates, it really is a better option to try to have more fair elections by doing ranked choice voting. Now, of course, that's all very convoluted because there's many different styles of ranked choice voting, whatever. But anyway, having a working relationship with him, we were talking, and I was telling him how our chair mentioned that we had linked up with the Arizona Green Party way back in like 2007. And she used to do a lot with them. And we've just always had a good working relationship with them, but it's just
underdog commonality.
Exactly. And you know, whether or not we agree on many different issues, but it's still that third parties are constantly under attack, particularly here in Arizona. The GOP has sued to get us off the ballot. They've gone to great lengths to actually change third-party ballot access and signature requirements and whatnot. So it's sort of another one of those issues where we're like, yeah, we can unite on this, and we have to fight against this because they're very obviously targeting third parties. Yeah. So it's been cool to sort of rekindle that relationship with them and have that good working relationship. So when John saw that I was posting about the End the Damn Wars rally, he reached out and he was like, hey, would you be interested in sort of having the Greens participate or whatever? So that was sort of what spawned that. Yeah. And then it was really cool because I was like, I pushed out messaging like, you won't see this from the other two. Yeah. Period. You won't. And that, I think, also really sort of resonated with people where they're like, whoa, this is much bigger than just a libertarian event, because
it's funny that they were the ones to reach out to you more, because usually we're stuck in the corner being like, hey, we're doing something that you'd probably like be our friend. Oh, with the libertarians? No, I'm going to hold my nose. Like, okay, you would have been really into it.
Yes,
Like,
yes, absolutely. I thought it was really remarkable that they actually reached out to me and they took that initiative, because I'm sure they're also used to the same thing where we're like, ew, no,
Yeah.
you can't sit with us.
yeah, like real cliquey, kind of like, they're not like us, actually.
Exactly.
So we have nothing in common with them.
Exactly. And honestly, that gatekeeping is probably what keeps a lot of things from actually happening.
Well, it's divide and conquer.
Yeah,
You know, like
yes.
everyone wants to be like, oh, we're the ones who solved, X issue, instead
Right.
of being like, oh, X issue was solved.
Right. By all of us.
Yeah.
Or, we worked together and
Yeah.
we went above our own, inner circle and our own whatever. You put it's almost like an ego or
I was
pride
about to
thing.
say, it's 100%.
Yeah.
Seems to be an ego thing where everyone wants to be the hero. It's like,
Yes.
can't we just fix things and
Exactly.
not care? You know?
Exactly. You have to put all of that aside and just say, hey, it doesn't matter who solved it or who came up with the resolution. We did it.
Yeah, that's like, even I'm sure there's a lot of libertarians who might not necessarily be involved with the party who might, oh, it's a Libertarian Party event, like, oh no, it's like, really, it's anti-war.
Yes. Yes. And to be honest with you, I feel like it's sort of my baby.
Yeah,
like
it's not a party thing.
Yes,
But it's party
exactly.
support.
But we're supported.
Yeah.
So that is also something that I hope is kind of obvious, and I also am hoping that having that bipartisan sort of thing going on, that people will realize it's bigger than just a party.
Yeah, like I'm myself, I'm not much of a party person, but I was still like, cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad that AZLP is putting their resources into this and like actually getting out and using that platform to message this. I really dug that, which
Yeah.
is why I was quite interested to get involved, and why I'm sure a lot of other people in my position would be too.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And thank you for that. It's really definitely very, it just validates everything that I'm putting my efforts towards.
yeah.
So it's really nice to know that even people who don't necessarily care about party factions, but they see these single issue focus. And that's something that I'm really noticing, is that single issue focused just groups or whatever, working groups, rallies, any of that is sort of, I think, the way forward.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've seen just with like police brutality over the last year, that was a big issue that people were starting to agree on. Like even some, conservatives, and especially like, more libertarian types were like, can we agree this is an issue now? Everyone was like, yeah, we're all pretty on the same page. Like, getting your face curb stomped by someone in uniform and then getting away with it isn't really how a country should be.
Yes, absolutely.
But then divide and conquer, it turned into like a left versus right thing, and anyone caught in the middle is a communist or a fascist, and off to the races.
Exactly. Yes. Start all over again.
And now we have a drug warrior and a cop in the White House. So
Oh my gosh, I don't even get me
Oh, no.
started. We could
No,
be here
but-
for another hour on that.
Absolutely. But it's just divide and conquer.
Yes.
You have to stay away from those pitfalls, even though they're like pretty enticing. It's like, oh, we can be in our nice little tribes and wear our team colors and
Yes.
throw the tomatoes at the other people, but like, where does that get you?
Right. What are you accomplishing at the end of the day? Nothing.
Yeah, you're fighting the other common man instead of the guy above you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Are there any anti-war viewpoints or arguments you've become more aware of working with other factions?
That's an interesting question. Not necessarily. I would say, kind of to the point that we were talking about earlier, is that you can find a common ground, even just with that list of demands. You can find that. I would say probably the emotional appeal is a big thing that a lot of other people do have that focus on. So that's something that, if you're, once again, not really that sort of emotional type of person, but at least to have an understanding that, yeah, maybe somebody's dad was killed when they were 6 months old and they grew up without ever knowing their father because he was killed in Afghanistan or one of the conflicts. So that is something that it definitely is important to try to have an understanding or empathy that might be their single problem that they have with war, and that's okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, from there you can bring someone in and like give them some more ammunition, because it's like, all right, your instincts are right on this, but here's some more.
Exactly, yeah, to add fuel to that fire.
Yeah, like something that I didn't expect to really consider as a big argument for being anti-war was kind of a more Green Party thing, where it's like the military is one of the biggest polluters in the world. Like,
oh, okay,
yeah, the amount of waste. I mean, just the leftovers in Afghanistan you can see, but just the operations, flight time and all their ordnance, it's like massively polluting.
You're right, and I did actually just recently read something about that, and you're 100% right. That's something that for me isn't, and not that I don't care about pollution in the environment, but for me that's not really something that that I'm super focused on. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because that would be a really great point to add to our list of demands. Like, if you're more environmentally, focused, that could be your single issue right there.
Yeah. I mean, these days it's kind of nice to use the state's own ammunition against them, because they're starting to weaponize the idea of climate change as a policy pusher, and being like, well, we're gonna have to tax the living hell out of you because we're killing the planet, and we're using all this money to fix it.
Yes.
Of course they're not. So if you take that and you just flip it on its head and be like, actually, your actions are way more polluting than, as well as, all the things you're subsidizing.
Right, like, it's funny that you bring that up.
Yeah, I've been meaning to talk about that, actually. Page 350 of the manifesto.
Let me check my notes here.
Yeah, I've got something for this. So, it's something that I'd never really, argued about. And then I recently kind of seeing, I've seen it before, like a few years ago, but more recently, someone, whether it was in Arizona or someone elsewhere, like kind of Green Party focused, with this End the Damn Wars thing, was on about how polluting it is. I'm like, well, duh. I mean, just aircraft carriers and cargo planes and fighter jets and all that kind of stuff. It's the amount of fuel and resources it takes is ridiculous. Yes,
and even like the burn pits,
Jesus Christ, yeah.
And then on top of that, it's all the people that have gotten cancer from being the ones next to the burn pits. So that, and once again, that adds a whole nother layer onto why it's just so, if you think about also just from the perspective of getting to the burn pits and sort of the fallout from that, all the people that have gotten sick, all of the people that have needed to have, massive amounts of surgery, they've lost limbs, they've lost, any of that.
Mental health issues.
And that's exactly what I was just going to say. Not just broken bodies, but shattered minds. And that in itself, and the mental health crisis that occurs with veterans, specifically post 9/11 veterans. I mean, it's just completely insane. So that you have the emotional aspect of how terrible that is, but you also have the fiscal aspect of how much money the VA and TRICARE and whatnot are having to pay out to
provide very shitty service.
Exactly.
Not even doing that job.
Exactly. Provide subpar care for these people who thought that they were doing a noble thing by going to fight for our country. And once again, to what means? You're sending these people over there. They're coming back sick. They're coming back injured. They're coming back just shattered. And then you also have the fallout from all of that, where it's like a ripple effect of then how does that affect their family? How many of their spouses or children or whatever have had mental health issues as well and committed suicide as well? So it's just so many layers and layers and layers of, I mean, we could probably talk about this all day.
It's a ripple effect. I mean, there's harm overseas, and then they bring it back, and then all the other damage that's not even direct, just a ripple effect of being at war for 2 decades.
Yep. That the fallout from it is just completely insane, and then the spending to try to fix that. So it's once again, we have that situation where the government creates a problem, and then the government
we know how to solve it.
Exactly, spends money to try to fix the problem and makes it worse.
Yeah, like war is the health of the state. It absolutely is. It's inescapable in this society, and it's not just the States. I mean, in Europe, you can still see the fallout of being at war for 20 years too. All those allies have been out there too, and it's changed the world for the worse.
Absolutely.
So hopefully we can see some kind of revival and societal change of this kind of these feelings coming to the forefront finally.
Yeah, I completely agree. If we can achieve that, that would be the ultimate like payoff for all of the efforts into fighting against it.
Yeah, I mean, no one's necessarily banking on them, turning on their TV September 12th and being like, they seem really, really angry about the wars. Well, time to flick the military-industrial complex into off position. But if you make it like socially unacceptable and just untenable to push that stuff,
yes.
They're going to be trying to make their money other ways and assert their power other ways. But the war is a bloody good one.
Yeah. If we can just keep applying pressure, and I think the way that society has evolved, if like it seems like politicians are so concerned with virtue signaling. If we keep pushing that rhetoric, like this is not okay, you are harming people. And once again, that ripple effect of how many people are harmed and civilians that are killed, and just keep bringing it to the forefront and keep applying that pressure, they eventually are going to have to cave, or they're going to be so worried about getting canceled.
Well, yeah. I mean, 20 years ago, it was like pretty tenable to, TSA can just grab every man with a turban and a beard, and that's A-okay. But now it's like, Jesus Christ, you'll be rightfully shut down for profiling someone like that. And they've, cleverly switched it from a xenophobic kind of target to the invisible enemy.
Yes.
Not to get into any of that, but
absolutely.
It's a sign of the times. They're like, okay, well, we can hate that no matter what. Mm-hmm. Instead of this, which it had its time to play and it's played out, and it doesn't work anymore. Mm-hmm. And hopefully we can get it to a place, because it is starting to get like that. No matter left, right, or center, and most of them are in the center. They're not getting away with targeting. Populists, they can't defend themselves against the United States anymore. But for their own gain.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's something I wanted to get into. Obviously, we don't expect to topple the military-industrial complex overnight, but what would a successful rally, and we touched on it a little bit, what would a successful rally look like in your mind?
So one thing that I am definitely a huge proponent of is lobbying. And a lot of people don't realize that you can directly lobby your legislature. So, like, I'm sure they know me. I stay sending out emails to all of the representatives, and even Congress. So one thing that to me would be considered successful is if I can just plant that seed, like, hey, these people work for us. And we need to remind them of that. And if you have to email them every single day to remind them that that's what you want to see and that's the change that you want to see, you can. And it may feel insignificant that you're only sending one email, but if we can get enough people doing it, they're going to have to listen. I mean, we're the constituents. So that, I think, is how to sort of do something about it, but you don't have to write a resolution and, present it at the House or whatever. But I think that is one small step that even if we just let people know, and you can take that and apply that to any other issue, even if it's an issue that I don't necessarily agree with you about, I want you to make sure that you know that these politicians work for you. They're supposed to represent you. So that to me would be a success.
Yeah. Is there any other actions that kind of for a more culturally or culture-focused angle, what would you like to see as like a fallout of this, more culturally?
Oh, sure. So kind of to a point that I was making earlier is that if we can get this to sort of resonate with younger folks. Yeah. They're the next generation. They're the ones that eventually, they're going to be the ones sitting in those seats as politicians and teachers and parents, and they're responsible for taking the reins when we're not here anymore. So if we can pass that message down And, you know, I mean, and the way things are now with how society is like internet culture. So if we can even get, let's say there's one kid that's like famous on TikTok and they make a thing that goes super viral and it has an anti-war sentiment to it, that in itself is going to have such a far reach that if we can get something like that, whether it's from, you know, the Phoenix rally, the DC rally, all of it combined, if we can just plant that seed and let it grow, that would be hugely successful from a cultural standpoint. If we can just start saying, this is not right, it's not appropriate, and look at how many people we have here that are in agreement from all walks of life for all different reasons. You don't even have to have a reason. If you just say, yeah, war is bad, people die, cool, I'm in. Great. And if we can get that to be the ripple effect of that anti-war sentiment rather than the damage is done from war ripple effect, I think that's really the ultimate goal. I think that would be wonderful.
Yeah. I think this generation are like either very apathetic or very plugged in and passionate. Yes. And it's like, all right, we just got to flip that switch.
Yes.
And I mean, you're seeing kind of younger people less and less joining the military and more having kind of a negative association with it. Because the culture is changing finally. That kind of post 9/11 feeling of like it's patriotic and you're protecting your country is kind of now almost a joke to them. So hopefully that's something that, you know, not to diminish anyone's service or their time in or their emotions about it, but like you know, a lot are kind of waking up to the reality of it.
Yeah, and even if you can capitalize on that and not to say, you know, bash anybody that has chosen to join the military. But if you can sort of capitalize on that sentiment, like, yeah, we had this hyper patriotic period of time and it was used to do horrible things. I mean, even just within our own country, the Patriot Act, we're still feeling the effects of that today as well. So even if we can point out like, hey, look at all these crappy things that also happened because of that movement and sort of say, yeah, let's use that as a lesson to not let that ever happen again and not ever fall into that trap again. I think that once again ties into messaging and how you can sort of also talk to your audience too. Yeah. So if you can find something like that and you know who you're talking to, general messaging is great, but if you can get that sort of niche messaging where, yeah, hey, look at it from this point of view, great. I think that could be really something that we could use as well. Yeah.
And I think with this generation, there's no more important time than to revive this movement because these kids grew up like a lot after 2001.
Yes.
We've been at war their entire lives. Yes. And so things like the Patriot Act, like, you know, your internet search history is not private, no matter what you do. Is right. Like that's just a factor of life to them. And which is something that's made them very nihilistic, you know, yes. kind of apathetic to the whole thing. It's like, we live in a police state. And it's like the perfect time to kind of shake them by the shoulders and be like, that's not normal, before they just accept it and, you know, continue with the complacency.
Yes, because that's all they've known and they're comfortable with it and they don't see anything that's wrong with it. And the other thing is the extremists, the QAnon folks and whatever, and like, hey, you can have your beliefs, but it's become a joke where whenever you do question the government, now you're written off as just a crazy conspiracy theorist. And even with all of the receipts, a lot of times the younger folks are just like, no, you're just crazy. Yeah. It's like, well, maybe I am, but I also might have some valid points.
Yeah. It's like, you just gotta always be on your toes with kind of defending that point. It's like, you know what? I might sound like I'm wearing a tinfoil hat right now, but I've been right before, and I'm worried I'm going to be right again.
Yes, and I do find myself sometimes prefacing my statements with, I'm going to sound like I'm crazy, but...
I'll always say, so this is a tinfoil hat statement,
but hear me out.
Like, I know my history too, so...
Yes.
Know. So I'll just round out with the kind of a few more details about the local rally, and then anything else you want to add. Could you tell us a little bit about our local speakers?
Yeah, sure. So we have Steve Remus that is going to be speaking. He is one of the candidates that's running for governor of Arizona. He is also an Air Force veteran. He worked at the Pentagon for a while. He is very, very qualified to speak on this issue. He's also super qualified. I can't remember what exactly it was, but I want to say like emergency response. He's very like did training in that. So he's a super, super smart guy, and he has a great way of wording things so that people can understand what he's saying. Like he never talks to somebody like
military lingo.
Yes, exactly. Trying to, so he's going to be speaking. I'm really excited for that. And then we have, one of my friends, his name's Ron Supernall. He is an educator. He is also a veteran. He was in the Army, and I want to say he was also in Afghanistan. So he's going to be speaking, and he's going to be offering sort of a different point of view. I don't want to give any sort of spoilers, but we had talked about it because he was kind of curious as to what my input is on his point of view. And I really liked that it wasn't your typical point of view of his experience in Afghanistan. So you'll have to come to the rally to find out what he's going to talk about. But I think it's going to be interesting.
Well, I'll be interested in covering that and hearing it.
Perfect. And then we have Jeff Metrick, who is the Libertarian candidate. He's running for Congress. He is also a veteran. He was in the Army, and he actually was over in Korea. So he's going to be talking about sort of like, his experience over there in Korea, and just his feelings on everything that's going on in foreign occupation, whatever. I also have Jake Howard, who is with the Sober Caucus or Sober... Oh my gosh, hold on. Sorry.
Of the Libertarian Party?
Uh-huh. He is a veteran, and he is pretty involved... Sorry.
You're good.
Oh, he calls himself the first pope of the branch Sobertarians.
Oh.
And
does he wear a colander on his head?
He might. We'll see how he shows up. So, he's also local. I asked him if he wanted to speak, and he was totally down. So it's just really cool to even have so many people that are veterans that are willing to speak at this event, because
it's a veteran heavy state, Arizona.
Yeah, and I find that there are quite a few libertarians that are veterans because they've seen firsthand all of the stuff that goes down.
Yeah, I think our good friends, the Bite and Bullet podcast, is going to be in attendance. Hopefully I'm not outing them, and hopefully they're actually coming. Otherwise, I'll announce them and they won't show up. But they do a very good job of covering kind of, government wastage and what in the military turned them to libertarianism.
Oh, awesome. I'm excited. I'm hoping that just a bunch of people show up, and cool. Say hi if you.
Yeah,
it won't be hard to miss me. I'll be the crazy lady with the red hair.
That makes it easier.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. We also have Tyler Smith, who is a veteran. He's very heavily involved with the Libertarian Party, kind of all over the place. He is also our candidate recruitment committee chair here in Arizona. And then we have Colette Jennings, who's going to be speaking. She is with the Arizona Green Party, and she's one of the co-chairs, and she also helps run the Young Eco-Socialist Caucus. So she's going to be speaking, which I think is great because hopefully she can provide a little bit more insight into those other points of view that I'm not necessarily focused on. And I think that's it. And then me, but whatever. You've already heard me talk quite a bit, so.
Well, hopefully we'll have plenty of people turn out to hear you some more, as well as all of those.
Yes, absolutely.
Where can we find this event?
Yeah, sure.
Where and when?
Yep. So it is going to be at El Dorado Park, which is in Scottsdale. It's going to be starting at noon, and I don't really have any idea of when it's going to end. I initially said probably 2, but I've gotten a lot more speakers to join, so it might be a little bit after that. And then the address for El Dorado Park I can give, but if you just look it up, it's...
I'll definitely have it in the description.
Okay, cool. So it'll be, starting at noon, going kind of until whenever. It is a beautiful park. It's huge. It's a huge, I think it's like a football field size area of grass. We're going to have stage set up. We're going to have audio. We are going to have a couple of tents for the people that are coming out. So be sure to look out for anybody that you want to talk to. We're always happy to talk. We are also going to have water and stuff provided for people. But if you want to bring your own chairs, your own blankets, umbrella, whatever for shade, definitely. And it's rain or shine. So even if you get rained out, I'll still be there. We might not have a microphone set up, but maybe I can get a bullhorn.
There you go. I like the spirit.
Yes.
All right. In addition to that, we said at the start, there's a number of other cities it's happening in, and there might even be more by the time we're done recording. But, so obviously Scottsdale, Arizona, you can find a rally, also in Denver, Colorado, Las Vegas, Nevada, Sacramento and Los Angeles, California, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, New York City, New York, and then Florida really going above and beyond, Jacksonville, Daytona Beach, and Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And of course the main event with Scott Horn and a whole cast of speakers, and probably going to be the biggest out of them. I'm hoping. I'd love to see a good march. You know?
Absolutely.
At least 100 people would make me happy, but let's hope more. So that'll be in Washington D.C. of course, and all the details for that you can find on endthedamnwars.org. Was there anything else you wanted to wrap up with?
I just really appreciate you having me on the show. I am very grateful to have the opportunity to talk about this and just to spread that idea. I think that that's really how this is going to be successful. So I hope to see as many people there as we can. I have been just promoting that it is a peaceful event. We really want to promote that idea that it is supposed to be peaceful. I don't expect there to be anybody screaming and fighting, so let's just hope it goes off without a hitch and it's a success, and I hope to see you guys here.
Yep, bring your tie-dye.
Yeah, totally. Hey, yeah, you can make daisy, hair things. I don't care, it's cool.
I would love to see a Flower Child revival.
Absolutely. I'm here for it.
All right, well, thank you very much for coming on, and we'll see you next time, and hopefully at the rally.
Yes, thank you.
In fact, coming up next up.
The Anarch Interviews. theanarch.substack.com